Hello, and welcome to Education Revelation, the show that focuses on innovative and out-of-the-box ideas to improve public education. I'm your host, Robin Ballard, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons and challenges and successes of student techsperts or student-led help desks with two of my fabulous educator friends. Both have already implemented a student-led initiative at their respective elementary campuses. So I'm going to have you guys introduce yourself. Katie, why don't we start with you?
I'm Katie Landaverde. I'm an instructional technology coordinator. Do you want me to just talk about my background a little bit, Robin?
That would be great. Like where you went to school and what you did before we started techsperts, like what your background is.
Okay. I got my bachelor's from Eckerd College. My degrees are in creative writing and history. I was actually in management for several years before I got into education. And then I taught elementary special ed first. And then I was a campus technology integration specialist for 5 years. And during that time, that's when I implemented techsperts at my campus.
And then we have Michelle Richey. Michelle, share some stuff about you, your background.
Okay, well, I grew up in Houston and I went to Texas A&M University, started out as a psychology major and decided that I did not want to spend 12 years in school. So I switched up, but I did want to work with kids because I had worked at summer camps for a long time and just really like kids were in my heart. So I decided to become a teacher and I taught in the classroom for 21 years. And then I was given the opportunity to be the technology integrationist at my campus, where I have been for 17 years in the role of a technology integrationist for the last 6.
Wow, 17. Okay, so you both work at elementary campuses, right? Yes. What grades do you serve at those campuses?
Pre-K to 5.
Pre-K to 5.
Both of you pre-K to 5. Okay, so what I want to find out more is the whole thing with student choice and student voice and giving them the opportunity to really be a part of their learning is what we want to focus on. And my innovation plan at school was touching on student-led technology and how that could help all the way around, like help with the personnel. Like we're so short on our technology department staffing, and we struggle with just having teachers feel comfortable with technology, right? So I was proposing that we do a student-led technology desk to kind of relieve some of those. And that's when I witnessed what you guys had done at the elementary level. I was thinking more like a course at the secondary where it's hands-on, maybe fixing things and things like that, but you guys took it a step further. So I kind of want to find out what it looks like at your campus and what led you to start something like this. So we'll start with Michelle this time. Michelle, how did you get started? Where did you come up with it?
Well, I actually think I got the idea either from Katie or Dawn, another one of our technology integration specialists that were already implementing it at their campus. And when our campus became a Leader in Me school, I thought that the techsperts would be a great addition to the student action teams that we already had in place. So that's kind of where I got the idea. And we had an interview process, an application process where they kind of had to do a few things on the computer to ensure that they kind of knew their way around technology.
Did you limit it to just like the older kids? Or did you allow anybody that had interest in?
We started out with 3rd through 5th graders, yes.
Okay. And then Katie, how did it work at your campus? How did you get it started?
So I started it my first year as a technology integration specialist, so 6 years ago. And it was actually at the suggestion of my principal at the time was Dr. Perry. And so she actually asked me if I could start like a technology leadership program with kids. And kind of gave me, free parameters of whatever that we wanted that to look like. So like Michelle, I also kind of honed in on that 3rd through 5th grade. I certainly think you could do, pieces of this with younger students, but for me, I kind of honed in on 3rd through 5th graders. And like Michelle, there was an application process. We were also a Leader in Me campus, so having we had lots of student leadership groups, so it was kind of easy to kind of lump it in with other student leadership opportunities on campus. But we also used an application process as well.
Okay, so when you guys say student leadership groups, I'm more secondary. So what does that mean at the elementary when you say like after school clubs, or is this techsperts during the school day? You know what I mean? I'm not sure when you say leadership groups, what does that look like? Are they coming to you during a class period?
Well, we started out, no, we don't have a specific time period scheduled for the techsperts to meet. We started out years ago with, they would go get their lunch, and then they would come eat in my room, where we would talk about a new app or a new something that I would like their teachers to use in class, or something in Google. And they would, I would talk about it for a few minutes while they ate lunch. And then when they were finished, they would get on their Chromebooks and do their thing. And then sometimes they would want to stay through their recess time. Other times they would go over recess. Now this year, it's really interesting because now that we have really embodied the Leader in Me framework, we have leadership block. And so because they are a student action team within Leader in Me, they have a 30-minute leadership block in the morning. So I get to meet with them once a week during that leadership time.
Oh, nice, nice. So Katie, how did yours work? Did they do the lunch thing with you too, or did you have dedicated time?
I never had any official dedicated time to that with them. I had lunch with them once a week, and that was kind of our time together. And just like Michelle, our recess was right after lunch. So a lot of times they would opt to stay for the recess, but that was never mandatory. So that was really our time to meet. And then depending on what other activities or projects we were working on, there may be other times that I would coordinate with their teachers to arrange a time for us to be able to meet to work on a special project or things. But we never had a specific time block that we were allotted during the school day.
I have to say that I think if we did have an allotted time frame, that would add so much value to this. That's why I wanted to create a course where there was a dedicated time where they could help support teachers or each other. So without that dedicated time, what were some of the things that your techsperts were responsible for, and when did they have time to do it? Did you find that it was hard, or that they were self-initiated? I know that's a lot of questions, but I'll let you kind of Michelle, why don't you tell me kind of what your techsperts were responsible for at the beginning, and maybe how that evolved, right? I'm sure it changed.
Well, to begin with, a few years ago when we first started techsperts, we were not one-to-one with our devices. So we had, I think, 2 classrooms sharing one set of Chromebooks. So we didn't have as much breakage and as much issues with Chromebooks as we do now. So a lot of the time I spent with techsperts was teaching them how to share things in Google that they could go back and teach their classmates. So when their classmates were struggling with sharing their work with their teacher, they could kind of assist. So they were really more like teacher's assistants. So they could answer questions about what they were doing in class while the teacher was working with other kids. So they were kind of like the answer people when it came to the technology in the classroom. Now it's kind of evolved. They still do that, but it's evolved now also into troubleshooting because we are one-to-one and there's more kids and they're using their devices a lot more, especially during and now after the pandemic. A lot of Chromebooks start acting a little squirrely, and so they have to do some troubleshooting with that. And so the first thing I've taught them is how to troubleshoot, how to run an update, how to check. There's 2 or 3 different steps that they can check as a student. And then if none of those things fixes the problem, then they have to come bring it to me. But they can do those first 2 or 3 things to see. And they were so excited yesterday because they got to return 4 devices to classrooms that they fixed themselves.
So do you have a student from every single class represented in the techsperts?
I don't really check to make sure. I wish that I did that. I think that would be a great idea. I know I have one from every 3rd grade, and I'm pretty sure I have one from every 4th. I don't think I have one from every 5th grade this year.
So the teachers know who they can call on in class that have that. Katie, how did that work at your campus?
So kind of similar to Michelle. I feel like the one consistent piece that we always did was have them run kind of a help desk and like a troubleshooting desk. So I had a Chromebook hospital in my room where teachers could turn in broken Chromebooks. And that was the first thing that they did, unless it was something super easy that I already knew what was wrong and I knew, you know, the kids weren't gonna be able to look at it right away. Otherwise, I would leave it in the techspert bucket, and then they would try to come.
Uh-oh, we've lost you, Katie. She's frozen.
By like once a day. And can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes.
Y'all froze. I'm sorry. Did I freeze?
You did freeze.
Froze? Oh,
Yeah.
y'all froze too. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
No. So the last thing was you left it in the techspert bucket.
Yes.
And then you kind of cut out. So go from there again.
Okay, so teachers would just kind of leave broken Chromebooks or, you know, Chromebooks that weren't working in the bucket. And then kids would come and check, my techsperts would stop by, check the bucket and see what they could fix on those Chromebooks. And so really it was, they knew, you know, how to do certain fixes. They knew how to do updates. They did know how to do power washes. That one was a little tricky because I did have to put in the
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Lost her again. This is what happens.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you're all over the place.
I do talk about power washes with mine, but it's tough because I think
Wi-Fi password for them if they didn't have that.
You cut out and you come back in again, Katie.
I'm so sorry. Y'all didn't cut out for me that time. I'm so sorry.
Well, you know, did they do more than just Chromebooks though? Like I know as I walked over to your campuses last year, even during COVID, you had a lot of students present on campus. We didn't have a lot of virtual at our elementaries, but you had your techsperts there. Did they do, like, would they get called upon to do any kind of special projects, or did they do more than just actual tangible fixing of the Chromebooks? Because I think I'm envisioning that does give the kids a source of pride for sure. And really some good practical skills that they're going to need. But I want them to have more of, you know, more of a voice in the classroom. Did they have the ability, or did you ever witness anything like that? Katie, you go first. We'll see if we can keep you on this time.
Okay, so yeah, the troubleshooting was kind of the consistent piece, and then everything else that we did throughout the year was kind of projects based on campus need. So I definitely would spend time showing them tips and tricks they could show just to their classmates, or like clear touch tricks that they could show their teacher if their teacher was having difficulty. But also if we knew I was coming up upon hour of code with pre-K and kinder, I would show them things that they could come in and do, like an hour of code lesson or a digital citizenship lesson where they could plan what lesson they wanted to do. And we would kind of go through, we used Common Sense Media as our curriculum, so they could kind of look through, here's all the kindergarten lessons, and they could kind of pick what lesson they wanted to do, and they could plan a lesson and practice and write a lesson plan and go in and do like a digital citizenship lesson. And they did things like on morning announcements, they would do like reminders, and they made a few videos that were like Chromebook care reminders that they would make a video that could go on morning announcements. So little things like that as well.
I mean, I just personally, that's the best. That's just so good to hear. And so the teachers, did they ask for the techsperts to come help? Like, especially your younger grades. Yeah.
Especially the younger grades. And yeah, especially when they knew they had digital citizenship things or hour of code or just something new, you know, they were doing, especially last year with COVID, you know, all of that kind of looked different, but we had first graders at one point that were Zooming with our fifth graders. And so once a week they were doing, or twice a week actually, they were doing virtual book buddies, and they were in the same building, but obviously in their respective classrooms. So the first several times our first graders were getting on their own Zoom session, we would have techsperts come in and make sure that they all got signed in, they could hear on their headphones, like they got in, they could talk to their buddy. So that kind of stuff as well.
Which is all about leadership right there, like the kids demonstrating that leadership. So Michelle, same with your campus. And after this, I do want to, for all the listeners, your campuses are different. Your demographics are different. So I do want to talk about the makeup of your techsperts, but Michelle, will you tell us a little bit more about like what they did besides the Chromebooks?
Yeah, several years ago, and I don't think that teachers don't ask us to do as much anymore, but I do leave it to the students, the techsperts themselves, to come up with things that they would like to do. So one of our meetings towards the middle of the year, once they get pretty good at what they're doing and get into the swing of things, then I'm like, what kind of like public service announcements do you think we need? What do you see kids doing with their devices, you know, that they shouldn't be doing, or what do you see? Last year, they said that they would get very, very annoyed when kids would act up on Zoom. And so I was like, well, what do you want to do about that? And they were like, well, can we do like a public service announcement video about Zoom etiquette? I was like, sure, do that. So they used Screencastify, and then we put together like a whole Adobe Spark video to put on the announcements about how to act correctly during a Zoom.
And then they just showed it like morning announcements to every class.
Correct.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, so they got to pick that a few years ago when the summer was, the year was ending and summer was coming. They wanted to do like summer safety tip videos. So they made videos for summer safety tips. They come up with lots of ideas for like they want to do we do our announcements live. So they all want to be on the announcements. So they want to like come in and do like a Tech Tip Tuesday kind of thing and have you know, a little blurb about something going on, digital citizenship or something else that's happening. Teachers have not asked for this in recent years, but one of my favorite things was when kindergarten does geometry, the kindergarten teachers used to be able to use iPads. I'm like, we don't have really iPad usage anymore, but and they would use this app. I forget the name of it. Katie, you'll remember it. It's where you draw the line on the shape and then like make it talk. Yeah. So
Chatterpix, I think, is that what you're thinking?
Chatterpix, that's it.
Yeah.
Chatterpix. Yeah. So they would always ask the techsperts to come down and take their kindergartners around to like search the school for their shape and take the picture and help them with the app. And that was always a really fun time for the techsperts. The kids loved it. The little kids loved it. The big kids loved it. Everybody loved it. And yeah, so I would like for us to be able to do more stuff like that. Oh, the other thing they did last year was seesaw tips for the littles. Like if you were teaching a kindergartner how to like use the camera feature in Seesaw, like how would you do that? So they were able
That's a great idea. And I was just in my head, just thinking as you guys were talking, when I can do this middle school course and maybe even take some of your techsperts from elementary when they're in the middle school, that's a great idea because you have new kids that come in that don't have a clue about our Chromebooks, our login features, our programs, our class links, not just the things they're helping with, but maybe the one-on-one when the new kids walk in and they don't have any context of what we're doing. It would be a lot easier coming from a fellow student than maybe a teacher just putting up the instructions on the clear touch, you know, they'd have that, they could ask their questions and maybe not feel as, you know, they'd be more apt to talk to a fellow student. So that's a great idea. I'm going to run with that one. Now, your two campuses, we're in the same school district. We're not a really big district. We have about 4,000 kids. But what did your campus, what do your demographics look like, Michelle, at Corinth this year in terms of what techsperts are supporting? Do you happen to know?
What techsperts are supporting?
Like how many kids do you have on your campus?
A little over 500.
Okay. And they're pre-K through 5 and everybody has a Chromebook?
Everybody has a Chromebook.
Okay. And everybody has a login.
Correct.
And then programs that are specific to them.
Yes.
Does every classroom have a large clear touch screen? Okay. And then every class plays the live announcements in the morning?
Right. We do it through Zoom.
Okay.
We started doing that last year and it was very popular. So we've continued to do it this year. So
Are the techsperts the same ones that do the morning announcements?
No, that's a different student leadership team.
Got it.
The assembly team. Yeah.
But the techsperts can present their Tuesday tips or whatever they are during those announcements. Okay. So Katie, what's the size of your camp or was your campus last school year?
It always hovered between like 600 and 670.
Okay. And yours was the bilingual campus, so you had a very diverse campus.
Yeah, our demographics were a little different from the other elementaries in the district.
So did that make a difference on the applications? Was it like teacher reference or teacher recommendation, or did you try to find, because I think some of these techsperts I've met, some are the real shy ones, and some have been very outgoing, and some are super confident in their skills, and some are just eager to learn. So what did your application process really look like? Like, how did you know who to pick? Just anybody?
So for me, I started out in the beginning using paper applications. And I got away from that for a couple of reasons. One, it was it can be a little daunting to sort through. You get a lot of them. And I don't know that it was hard for me to know who was truly interested. Because sometimes on there you would get kids that gave very short answers or didn't write much or gave 2 or 3 words, not complete sentences. So sometimes it would be hard to, it'd be easy to kind of discard that and be like, well, this isn't a real application, but maybe that's really more a reflection of like their language skills or their literacy, and not necessarily their ability to support technology or their willingness to learn, or their desire to be a part of this group. So those were my couple of reasons for getting away from paper applications. And so we ultimately I went to Flipgrid, and so they just did a video. It was just a few questions that they answered. But I found with video applications, I got fewer applications, but the ones that I got were very serious. And so even if they were a little shy or quiet on camera, they would be more willing to talk about their experience or talk about their desire, like the reasons that they wanted to be a part of it, instead of they maybe wouldn't have written several paragraphs explaining all that, but they might talk about it for a couple of minutes. So that was what our process looked like. And honestly, once we went to Flipgrid, I didn't get nearly as many applications, so it was much easier to kind of sort through and try and figure out how we needed the group to look, and then kind of we could weigh in other factors. For me, the factors that I tried to consider were I tried to make sure that there was kind of, as close as I could, an equal representation. We all know about the inequities in tech with girls versus boys, and I always had way more boy applicants than girls. So I always tried to have as close as possible equal representation there whenever I could. And then I just looked at how many other action groups for us. We had a lot of action groups on the campus, so that was a factor I looked at. Was if I have a kid who isn't in any other action groups, this is the only one they applied for, versus a student that's already in 2 or 3 or 4 other action groups. So those were kind of things that I weighed when making that decision.
And it was up to you. You could pick your own techsperts?
Yes.
Did you do teacher recommendations, or did you get the input from the teachers?
I would. I mean, I was at the same campus for a long time, so I knew a lot of the kids, but students that I wasn't familiar with, or was, maybe had seen some behavior concerns or wasn't sure if it was going to be a good fit, I would go talk to the teacher and to get a better feel for, if that was going to be a good fit for them. And for me, I always tried to make sure I gave students the opportunity. So even if the teacher was like, I don't know, we can try it and we'll see how it goes, I tried to include those kids because a lot of times they were the ones that rose to the occasion, just giving them those opportunities.
Yeah, because they felt like they were valued and needed. And that's exactly why it was more reason for them to come to school, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
A lot of
Michelle,
times it is the kids with like behavior issues or like control issues that are really good at technology.
Yes.
Yeah, that's their strength. And so, yeah, I definitely try to give those kids a chance, because a lot of times they're the ones that will shine as techsperts.
what did your applications look like, Michelle? Did you do online, or did you do personal interviews, or?
Yeah, we do. We kind of do it. We send out kind of a blanket application for a lot of action teams at once through a Google form. And they just kind of click the ones they want, and then it'll send them to a different section where they have to answer specific questions. And then it all aggregates into a spreadsheet. So then I'll email the kids that responded that they wanted to be a techspert. I send them an email with, I've done a Flipgrid before where they have to send me a Flipgrid. I've asked them to do a Screencastify and submit it to me. They have to do something techie. I've asked them to do like a Google drawing and insert things, they have to, and share it with me. Like they have to show some skill with technology. And then I pretty much kind of take everybody, and give everybody a chance. If they do all of those things and they've, again, asking them to turn something in narrows the field quite a lot. I start out with 30 kids that filled out the Google form that wanted to be a techspert. I end up with 12 that turned in their Google drawing or their Screencastify video or whatever. So I pretty much take everybody and we go from there. They sign a behavior contract, a permission slip from their parents. Their parents know what they're doing. I say, if you get in trouble, if I find out from you, then we have a fighting chance. If I find out from somebody else, then it's going to be worse. So for you, usually they'll come and talk to me first before somebody else does.
Okay, so that's a lot of numbers. So tell me, like last year, this year, give me a comparison. What's the most amount of techsperts you've supported in a school year? How big have your classes been?
I had close to 30 one year.
Wow.
Close to 30. And this year I have 16 so far. But then as the year progresses, sometimes they decide it's not for them. And they decide to stop coming to meetings or join a different student action team. So I usually end up, by the end of the year, I usually end up with 12.
Do you have a lot of people dropping off or trying to get on? Is it a big drop?
No, it usually goes from, like, right now I've got 16-ish and it'll go to like 12-ish. And then we do another big application process. We'll do another big application process in November. And so then we'll have some more people that'll be like, that was kind of cool. I saw my friend doing that, and that, I'd like to try that.
Oh, so like for the second semester, they'll do it for them.
Right. So we usually do 3 application processes a year. We do like end of August, November, and April.
Well, that's nice because they can kind of
April.
see what they want to do, where they want to be. Katie, how big was your biggest one and how small was your smallest?
My first year, I was a little overzealous, and I think I wound up with about 35 or so, and it was a lot. And you just can't do near the amount with such a large group. And so from there, I kind of started capping it. And there were years that I had not tons apply, so I could just take everybody, which was obviously the ideal. But even past that, I kind of started capping it at about, depending, usually 5 or 6 per grade, but with between 3rd, 4th, and 5th, that gave me right about 15, which was a good number. I think last year I had 12, and I think that was probably my favorite size, just because with a smaller group you can do so much more.
Right.
Okay, awesome. In my research for this student-led technology group, there was some real big challenges that I read about. And one of them was, you've already addressed it, the finding and recruiting students. So it sounds like at the elementary level, the kids are curious and they want to be a part of it. And they, hopefully that will also be the case when we implement at the secondary level, especially if it's a credit course or a course that gets them some skills for the working environment. There are places that are hiring young adults with the skills that we're showing them in the public school. But one of the other challenges that I've read a lot about was teacher buy-in. And I personally feel like the relationship between the teacher and the student makes such a difference with the, learning expectations. But did you ever come across teachers that did not feel comfortable getting assistance from students, or did you have to really work to get techsperts integrated into your campus? Michelle?
Well, I've actually had the opposite, I have to say. I've had teachers that came to me and said, I don't have a techspert in my room. Can I get a techspert in my room?
Nice.
And I'm like, well, I can't control who applies and who doesn't apply. So pick a couple of kids out that you think would be good and encourage them to apply next time we have an application. So, I've never had anyone, not that it doesn't happen, but I've never had anyone actually verbalize to me that they don't like having a techspert in their room. So,
And that's good to hear. I mean, personally, I think that's really good to hear. So you haven't had any teachers that have, I've read just some horror stories where they put their foot down. They're like, I will not have a student tell me what to do, which I've never experienced either, but you've not run across anything like that then.
I have not run across that. The only like issue that I've heard, there's two actually. There's one where a teacher came to me and said that the techspert that she had two techsperts in her room, and one of them was being quite bossy to the other kids about that they knew everything there was to know about the Chromebook, and that everybody should just like sit back and listen to them. And so we had to have a conversation about, delivery. And the other issue is sometimes, because 30 minutes is not a lot of time, so when you're trying to train the techsperts on how to do something or have them write their script for their video, I mean, 30 minutes is not a lot of time. So to get those videos made and to get like the PSAs done for the announcements or whatever, that I might ask them to stay for some extra time. And I've gotten some blowback on that because they're missing instructional time. And I understand that, but
Yeah.
I think that what they're doing in techsperts is valuable as well. So
Which is why we need a dedicated allotted time to have to spend with those kids so that they feel prepared when they go into classes.
Right. There's a lot of
Katie,
projects we've started that never really came to fruition just because we didn't have the time to dedicate to it.
Katie, did you experience any problems with the teachers accepting student assistance?
I didn't experience anything like that from the teachers. They were very, I think, open and kind of excited to see kids take on that leadership role. So I didn't have any pushback like that from teachers. But like Michelle, it was the only issues I ever ran into was finding time. I tried to only pull them during lunch or if they chose to miss recess. But then there were times that, if we're doing other projects, I really needed more time with them. So then trying to
Oops.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. So we, trying to coordinate with teachers so they weren't missing too much instructional time. And so there were a couple of situations where teachers were like, this is just not a good week. Like you can't pull them at all. Like there will not be a good time this week. I'm like, I literally need them for 15 minutes sometime this week, Can we work something out? Because like Michelle, I'm like, I completely understand, the chaos of, the classroom and when you're trying to get through, everything you need to get through, but there is value in this as well. So, but that was the only pushback, and it wasn't done in a negative way that, I think people understood, I understand what you're doing matters, but it was just finding that time, which is tricky.
Another thing, and I know this is true where we work because our IT people tend to be more concerned about security, which is super important, whereas we on the instructional side want to give our kids and teach them the right way to do things versus locking them down. So when you had support with the Chromebooks, you kind of touched on it a little bit, because there were certain things they couldn't do. They had to come to you when they've exhausted. Were security permissions, did that impact anything? Like they didn't reset username, passwords. They didn't do anything like that. So they didn't troubleshoot into actual curriculum. It was more generic stuff.
Right. It was more updating the Chrome operating systems on the Chromebooks. I was going to ask Katie, she froze earlier, but when I've tried to get mine to do a power wash, like I have to
be on my login. Yes.
Yeah. So that I have to log in to do the power wash. So that's not something I train them to do in their classroom because they can't, so I'm like, bring it to me. We'll do a power wash together. But back when I started and I was doing a lot more with my techsperts I was kind of using them as guinea pigs at one point, because as the instructional technology person, I wanted to test out apps that I wanted teachers to use in their classrooms. And I wanted to see how student friendly they were before I would roll it out to teachers or before I would even suggest it to teachers. So I was like, I don't want to suggest things that they're going to then try with their class that are not going to work well. So I would have my techsperts try them out. And there were several that looked really good on paper and were really fun as an adult, as a teacher to use, but it was not user friendly for the student. And so, and I don't know if that's because it wasn't user friendly or if it because our district made it, because of the safety issues and the firewalls and everything made it harder, which I understand that they need to be protected. But there's some fun stuff out there that we had difficulty accessing.
Okay, so your techsperts were your guinea pigs.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I mean, and they were prepared. They were going in trying to see what didn't work.
Right. They
That's
went in.
super fun.
Yeah. And I was like, we're going to try this because I want to know how it works from a student's perspective, because I can't log in as a student. I want some students to try it and see what it looks like from that end, so that I can then see if your teachers would benefit from it. And they're like, so we're like your assistants. Yes, you are being my assistants.
I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking. It just shows your trust, and it shows that you feel you value their opinion. I mean, it's all of the things that we want kids to feel, to grow. It's not just your educational, it's your social, emotional, everything. So what you did with your techsperts, that's awesome. Katie, what about you? Any permission stuff, anything like that impacted your kiddos?
Like Michelle said, doing a power wash was tricky. They had to bring it to me so I could log in first, and then they could go through the steps. But then when they got to the end, I had to do the Wi-Fi password as well. But there were lots of things that I didn't run into issues just because I avoided them, knowing that, they wouldn't have permission. So there could have been other things that we would have eventually implemented potentially, but I just knew the kids wouldn't have the permissions to do that. So.
Well, I wanted to share, I've been to both of your campuses during the techspert time. And there was one, I've had something at both campuses, but at LD, at your campus, Katie, when I was there, we were working with the virtual reality, and it's before your campus had their own. I would take that giant 85-pound suitcase and I would roll it into the classroom, and it would take so much time just to set up for the virtual reality. And there was one occasion when I was in the science lab, and the kids that jumped up to help me identified themselves as your techsperts, and they didn't know what to do. It didn't matter. They were willing to do it and excited to do it. And almost, I didn't hesitate at all. The fact that they had the initiative to stand up and say, this is something that I can help you with. So I witnessed the confidence in the kids, the willingness to step up. It was just really neat. And I think they were fourth graders. It's kind of hard for me to remember what exact age they were, because we rotated throughout the day, but there was this one class, and it blew me away. So I thought that was awesome. And then at your campus, Michelle, there was one time that we were doing, I think it was during the career exploration day, and you had your techsperts rotate, and they actually did one of the sessions where the kids rotated in with that same virtual reality, but they took charge of they picked out which they wanted to do. I think your GT teacher, Miss Morris, helped as well. But it was the same thing. They were so proud and they were so excited, and they rotated. There was maybe 6 or 8 of them in the room, and they would read one sentence, and then they'd look at their partner and they'd do the next one, and then someone else would demonstrate it. So they were trying to work together as a team, right? And it was really, really great to see that from the outside perspective. So that's really what I want to kind of close out and look at this. What, in your opinion, are the evident successes with implementing techsperts? Like, what did you witness, whether it's for the campus, for the student, all of the above? Katie, what did you think was the biggest benefit and success?
I mean, of course, I think there's benefit to having students in your class that can help troubleshoot things, right? Like, that saves everybody kind of time and headache. And so that's important. But I think the bigger piece for me, at least, was the students themselves, and just like watching their confidence grow throughout the year, and their excitement to, oh, I know how to fix that, and like running, wherever they can to like help and fix things. And especially kind of like Michelle touched on earlier, I typically ended up with a lot of our students with more severe behavior issues, not all of them, but a larger percentage. And so watching, them try and just kind of grow in that, and really kind of take ownership and build confidence. And that was really fun.
Michelle, share me some stuff. Share me some successes.
No, well, I would completely agree with that. It's just, they get such a feeling of accomplishment when they're actually doing something that matters. It's that authentic learning that, you're creating something that the whole school needs. You're creating like a Zoom rules, the whole school needs that. You're creating seesaw how-to videos for the kinders. It's like people are actually going to use those. It's not some assignment that you're going to do for your teacher and then you're going to get it back. And
they're seeing the value.
Yeah, you're seeing the value.
Yeah.
And it actually matters to someone else besides you and your teacher. It's more of a public product. And, and again, with the kids that might struggle with behavior a little bit, that are kind of, that maybe are down on themselves because they feel like they're always in trouble, or, they're not very successful academically in the classroom, but this is something they can be successful at, and plus providing a service to other people, so they get that sense of community, like I'm doing something for someone else, because a lot of times those kids are the ones that are, kind of maybe even not very nice to other kids, but they have that feeling that I'm doing something for someone else and providing a service to the school.
Okay, so it just popped in my head. This is totally off, and it may not have. Did you ever experience with these techsperts? Because I'm just thinking, just me working with instructional technology, there are some days that I could just pull my hair out. Like, it doesn't matter what I did, nothing works, I couldn't fix something. Did you ever find that the kids also experienced the frustrations, or are they more capable of handling that than maybe us adults? Did you witness any of that, Michelle?
It takes a little bit of time, but between the beginning of the year and the end of the year, they do learn that. They learn that, technology is technology, and it's not always going to behave the way you want it to behave. And you can troubleshoot everything you want, and then if your internet goes down, your internet goes down. So they kind of learn those coping skills and learning how to problem solve.
Did they do that on their own, or did you have to provide any kind of because I can see by each other's example, they would be learning that, but I'm wondered, did you have anybody just throw up their hands and say, this is too hard, I can't do it? Well,
yeah, but they would get frustrated. Oh, it's not working. And it's like, well, what else can you do? What have you tried? What have you not tried? What's another search? What are some more keywords that you could search if you're not finding what you need with these keywords? Just kind of training them to persevere. Yeah. Asking them the questions that, kind of try to lead them to the answer. And that I think supports them being more, growing their perseverance a little bit.
But you noticed you could see that growth from the beginning to the end?
Yeah, definitely.
That's good too, because that's also an example that they can set for probably their teacher and their other ones. Katie, did you ever have kids that just, I know how I feel when I get frustrated, and I can't imagine maybe being younger and not being able to verbalize that. Did you have that?
To an extent. I did never have kids just completely, throw their hands in the air and quit, or anything, but I, definitely had students get frustrated. They really grow that resilience throughout the year, and kind of just learn that that's par for the course, and you gotta keep playing with it and asking questions. And they become really good problem solvers, especially the more familiar they become with it. They'll start going to each other for help and asking like, hey, I tried this and this and this, none of these things worked. And, getting suggestions from other kids like, oh, what if we tried this? And so their problem solving skills, you see those grow as well. And so that's really cool.
Okay, that like totally gave me goosebumps, right? Because kids working with the other kids, I mean, that's what it's all about. That's that higher level thinking. That's that problem solving that we want them to do in the classroom. They're doing this through this. It's really what you're doing is an external club. It's not a class. So they're experiencing all those things that we want them to experience in the classroom. And you guys are leading the charge by example, That's just amazing. Did you notice any teacher-student relationships grow from this, perhaps? Did you have like a teacher that would say, oh my gosh, can you please send this techspert to me? I need his help with this. Were they called out even?
I didn't experience that because they're not with me all the time, but I hear I'm sort of close to the third grade hall. So I hear their stories more than other people's stories. And I do know I've heard more than once that a teacher went across the hall to pull a techspert out of another class, that she didn't have one and it needed somebody, so the teachers know who they are, they know who they are, and they
don't wear a badge or anything, right? They don't have like a techspert badge or t-shirt.
Well, I like for them to have them, but it doesn't always work out. But I like them to have, I do give them like a lanyard with a credential on it. So like when they're like walking to and from meetings, to me, like people know why they're in the hall. And, but I just got my lanyard yesterday, so they don't have them yet.
Katie, did you do that? Did they have badges or hats or t-shirts or?
I did something similar. They just had a lanyard with a badge, and really that was more just for other adults in the building to know if they were out of class or if they were, roaming the halls working on a project during recess, that they had permission, that they had a purpose, or if we were having lunch, they could put it on before they go through the lunch line, so everybody knows why they're leaving the cafeteria, and that kind of thing. So it was kind of, yes, I think they wear it very proudly, but also it serves a little bit as like a hall pass too.
Yeah.
I mean, I can picture them with like jackets on and like little ties, right? Because I could see if you have a guest come in the building, a guest speaker, the principal needs help with, I can totally envision these kids.
If I had a cricket, they'd have t-shirts, but
I can hook you up there, Michelle.
That's not my jam. So
got some connections on this one.
We get Suzanne on that.
Yeah.
Wait, we need t-shirts first to say
right?
we created it, and then they can be our little, our little examples. So you guys are it's just a joy to work with both of you. I'm just one of the luckiest people in the world to be surrounded by people that love kids and love instructional technology as much as I do, and try to make things better every day. So it's truly just my honor to work alongside of you guys. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and sharing your knowledge and doing what you do every day. As we leave, I would like for you to just any advice or things that another district, another campus would need to consider if they were going to implement some type of student-led instructional support, whether it's club activity, techsperts before school, in any form or fashion. Is there any advice you would offer them, Katie?
A couple of things. I feel like the thing that we talk about nonstop in education is there's never enough time, and there's not. But I think this is something that while you do have to, of course, find the time to do it, it doesn't have to be, if you don't have a block, dedicated to this, it can be easily implemented with just, eating lunch with kids, finding time during recess, before school, after school. You do not have to have a dedicated time during the instructional day if it's not possible. And the other thing is just to really give them, give the power to them. Student voice is powerful, and you can ask guiding questions, but the projects and the things that they come up with on their own is really cool. They would come up with things that I hadn't even noticed or thought about. Last year I had a couple of 5th grade boys that came and talked to me, and they were like, we're really frustrated. The headphones in the computer lab are always tangled and people don't put them back. And they don't hang them up on the back of the chairs like they're supposed to. And they're like, can we have a new system? And I was like, sure, what's your plan? And they were like, we would rather hang them on a wall, and that we kids have to unplug them and go hang them up on the wall, and they're not just like getting up and throwing them on the ground or leaving them there. And so they proposed that. We bought a rack. They hung it up themselves. And so it was kind of a little minor thing, but it was something I wouldn't have thought about, that like our headphone storage isn't efficient, but they were the ones cleaning it up a lot. And so they were like, this is frustrating. We need a new system. And so, they'll come up with all kinds of, things that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of. So
I love that example. And you know what? We need to share that with our principals, because we need to celebrate those things like that. That is an excellent idea. Great initiative. So clever, right? We need to celebrate those. So Michelle, what is your words of wisdom for somebody that wants to do this?
Well, it's kind of the rule I live by is just start. Don't think you have to have a wonderfully planned out, fully operational group in year one. Just start small, give them a couple, and again, like Katie said, give the kids the voice and find out what they feel is important for them to be doing and let them do it. But don't think you have to have all these different like committees and, kids and schedules and spreadsheets of kids going here and there and doing all these things. Just start and let the kids lead it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Do you mind if I give out your work email address if anybody has any questions or wants to touch base with, any details? Do you guys feel comfortable with that? Home addresses, credit card numbers? No, just email addresses. You good with that?
Just email.
email's good. Yeah.
Just email's good. Okay, thank you both sincerely, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. You're awesome, and your time, your passion, your knowledge, you are the best. And I thank you for being on my first official podcast. Thank you.
Yay.